and that are being executed for no reason. We are dying disproportionately more than any other race in this pandemic that is happening right now. And so to say that our experience is not traumatic is, there's no other way to describe it other than that. And so you think about, even if you came from a family that had all the money, that had all of the resources, that had all of the things that you needed growing up, but your skin color is Black, you still are a part of this experience. And so that in and of itself is something that is worth talking about with someone, because it's a part of who you wake up and are every single day. If you don't wake up a different color just because you have money or just because you have opportunities. We still have to navigate this world in our bodies. And as much as we may want to ignore that, that is the reality of our situation right now. The other thing that I think is really important to touch on is how trauma shapes our experiences. And many of us have experienced trauma, and trauma occurs on so many different levels in our lives. And so these are some examples of trauma, and they're not all of them, but we think about childhood trauma that is not limited to physical, sexual, emotional abuse, neglect, not having your needs adequately met, needs being physical needs like clothes, shoes, food, but also your emotional needs met, having someone that can mirror your experience, someone that can encourage you, someone that can be there for you, someone that can hear you, someone that you can cry to, that doesn't tell you, fix your face before I fix it for you. All of these things. Then we think about generational trauma and how the traumas of our parents and our grandparents then get passed down. And so if you don't know any better, you recreate the same patterns of things that have happened to you, and it just continues to pass on. And so this is why it's so important for you to take this step and to choose to do something about it, because if not, it will continue on. The other thing is dealing with grief and loss. Grief and loss are extremely difficult to deal with. And everyone has their own process and how they deal with these things. However, it's something that, people often like to put a time limit on. They like to make things fit neatly in a box when that is not the reality of what it is. It is difficult. And so it needs to be talked about. Again, I'll mention poverty and racism. These are traumas. These are real traumas. As much as people may not consider them to be traumatic, they are, because it has to do with not having your needs adequately met. So therapy and choosing to go to therapy is not always an easy thing to do. And finding the courage to speak to someone and to speak your truth is the first steps in healing. So oftentimes people don't want to speak about the things that have happened because it makes it real. It makes the thing that happened real. It makes the pain real. If I say it out loud, I can't pretend that it's not there anymore. If someone else is there to witness me saying this out loud, I can't pretend that it's not real. And so it's extremely difficult. And it takes a lot of courage and bravery. And I often say to my own clients, you are brave for coming here to tell me this. I appreciate you being willing to say these things because they're not easy to talk about. And so having that courage is extremely important. And it's really the first step in making that decision for yourself. So I like to use the analogy of going to therapy or finding a good therapist is like finding a good pair of jeans. So we all know the struggle of trying to find that perfect pair of jeans that fits your waist and your butt and your thighs perfectly. The length is perfect. I'm sure I always have a struggle finding the right kind of jeans because I'm 5'1" and it's not easy. It's not easy. So oftentimes I find myself going to multiple stores to look at jeans, to try on jeans, to feel them, to put them on, to take a picture. And then when I find the right pair, I am more apt to go back to buy every color, every wash, every distress, every rip. I'm going to repurchase those jeans over and over and over and over again because they fit me perfectly. And so if you think about that in terms of finding a therapist, it is the same thing in that you sometimes go to the first therapist that you find and you have a negative experience. And oftentimes you write off therapy as a whole because you did not have a good experience with this one person. And that is fair to say. It's fair to say that you are not going to have a good relationship with every person that you have therapy with. However, you should be invested enough in yourself, in breaking the pattern, in healing, that you choose to continue to search, continue to try on more therapists until you find the one that fits right. And I promise you, when you do find the one that fits right, it's a magical experience. It's exactly like when you find those jeans and you're like, listen, I got to tell everybody about these jeans because these jeans are everything. When you find that right therapist, you will find yourself on the phone talking to your friends like, oh my God, I love my therapist. I love my therapist. Her name is Brittany and she's amazing. And I will tell everybody about her because I love her. So I say all of this to say that sometimes it's a journey, sometimes it's a struggle, but do not give up and to not write off therapy as a whole because you had one bad experience. And then the other piece is healing happens through connection. So I mentioned earlier about trauma, and trauma has a way of making people feel very, very, very isolated. And when you have these experiences, you, even if you and someone in your family experience the same exact thing, there is something about the experience that makes you feel like no one else can